The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. This is Jay from ShopWorks. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to share about an hour with us. Our webinar today is the paperless shop. Is it possible? And then if so, how do we get there? I'm actually very excited to talk about this subject. I've been in this industry since 1992. And I would say the bulk of my career has been about um, making my shop more paperless. And then, of course, ShopWorks software is about that as well. So I'm excited to talk about this subject today. A couple things I'd like you to notice administratively regarding our webinars. They are recorded, so it will be posted on our YouTube channel um, later today or tomorrow. So if you want to share it with someone at work, if you want to just rewatch it, you can certainly do that. The way that these webinars work is that you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. So if you have questions, we do encourage you ask those questions, but you type them into the question pane. So when you logged in to go to webinar, there was a question area, and you can type in your questions, type them throughout the presentation, and then I will reserve some time at the end of the presentation. We do have kind of a long presentation today, so I will try to answer all of them. Can't promise that, but I'll do my best. The other piece of bookkeeping is that there are two handouts that are part of this presentation. One is the PDF of the presentation itself, and the other thing is you'll see a spreadsheet called Shop Analysis, and I'm going to go through that later on in the presentation, but you have a copy for your own records, just if you want to download it and play around with it. So let's get started. The first question we have is, I'm happy with my business. Do we really need to be more paperless? What is paperless all about? Why is paperless important to me? And the answer is yes, you do need to be more paperless. And the reasons why are, you're going to lose market share to your competitors who are more efficient if you don't become more paperless. And just so we're clear, when we talk about paperless, we're talking about a bunch of different things. Yes, eliminating paper from your shop, but what goes along with that is being more efficient, running your business at lower costs, and being able to grow your business. Your cost per transaction is going to be higher than your competition if you don't get more paperless. And it's going to make it harder to hire young talent. Young people don't want to work in paper-driven environments. As our population ages, the younger people just don't want that. Now, the only reason you'd want to say no here, do we really want to get more paperless, is if you want to stay small. If you want to stay under 250K per year in total sales, then really you can kind of stay as a paper-driven company. It's not going to hurt you that much. And the reason is because you just process so few transactions. All right, next question that naturally comes up, is it really possible? It sounds like kind of a pipe dream, paperless. And I'm only a small business, so is it really possible for me? Maybe this is only possible for larger businesses. And the answer is yes, it is possible. But the real question here is not if paperless is possible, it's how much it's possible. So I want you to think of being paperless as not a 1 or a 0 or a 0 or 100%. I want you to think of it as a scale, and you're going to be somewhere on that scale between 0 and 100%. And that's how you should measure yourself. So the goal is not really to get to 100%, although you can make that your very, very long-term goal. The real goal is, if we're at whatever percent, if it's 0%, 10%, 20%, how do we make us less paperless? And I don't want you to panic. If you are one of those people that's 0% or at a very low percentage, you're very paper driven, don't panic. You're going to go from 0 to 100% in steps. You're not going to go in one big chunk. So it is definitely doable. And each step is going to make you more efficient, more profitable, and at the end of the day, it's going to make you a happier business owner. It's going to make your employees happier. So to sum it all up, yes, you need to change. I've outlined why, and yes, you can change. And we're going to look into some of that as we continue. Normally, I don't give you a lot about my background when I'm doing these type of presentations. I feel it's necessary today because I'm going to be talking a lot and I want you to know a little bit about my background. So my background in this industry began in 1992. I was 25 years old. I'm not just a guy who owns a computer software company. In 1992, I opened a screen print shop. It was called Jam Graphics, located in the Washington, D.C. suburbs. And I started it with $0 in revenue. I was young, I was naive, had tons of energy, and can-do enthusiasm. I still have the enthusiasm, don't have all the energy I used to. Wish I did. But I am smarter than I used to be, so that's good. When I first started my business, Jam Graphics, we started, like a lot of people, with three-part forms. And now at the beginning, the business was only myself, and then it quickly grew to maybe one other person, two other people. And we had lots of paper. Three-part forms worked great, but we got to a point where it was hard to grow. And at that point, I started creating a solution. I put that in parentheses. That solution was called ShopWorks. That's what we called ShopWorks. ShopWorks became the company. OnSite became the product. And we started selling that to other people in 98. So between like 1994 and 1998, I was developing the software for my own use. And we were growing the business Jam Graphics. By 2000, Jam Graphics had grown to $1.6 million in sales. So in approximately 8 years, we'd grown from 0 to 1.6 million in sales. And at that point, I had 14 employees. My original screen print operation had grown to encompass embroidered apparel, screen printed apparel, and promotional products. And the reason I'm telling you all this is I just want you to understand my presentation today is as much as it is from a fellow apparel and promotional products business owner as it is from a software vendor. It's from both perspectives, but I do have quite a bit of background in running a business similar to your business. Not the exact same. You're going to have challenges that I didn't have, vice versa, but I do have some perspective on it. And I would say by the year 2000, our company had gone from being 100% paper to 50% paperless. So we had eliminated 50% of our paper in 8 years. Now, my design wasn't to eliminate paper. That's not what my goal was. So I'm not saying it's going to take you 8 years to eliminate 50% of your paper. You can certainly do it a lot quicker. Also, technology is more advanced now than it was then. So you have that advantage on your side as well. I did sell Jam Graphics in 2003, so since that time, I've only owned ShopWorks. So I have not owned an apparel business since 2003. I realize some things have changed since then that I don't have direct experience with, but ShopWorks has installed software and helped them install it and train them on it in over 1,100 businesses. So not only myself, but my staff, we have a lot of experience in dealing with companies just like yourself and the challenges that they face. So that's just a little bit about my background. Let's look at why is paper bad? Why don't we like it? Well, first of all, a lot of trees have to die, so that's never a good thing. But maybe more importantly, is paper-driven businesses move and react slowly. This is true now, 2019, and it's going to be even more so moving forward. And a slow business is going to equal a dying business. And you're already seeing that in other industries. It'll be true in our industry as well. The people who don't adapt to technology and move forward are not going to make it. And that's just a fact of the ecosystem. Paper makes the same task take longer. So when you have paper involved, it slows things down. Paper makes it hard to communicate. Communication is not fast with paper. Paper makes it hard to remember things that are important, like what the customer ordered last time. So when you're in a paper-driven environment, it's hard to know what happened last year, yesterday, 2 weeks ago, what the person said yesterday, last year, 2 weeks ago, because it's all on paper and you'd have to retrieve that paper and dig it out of a pile. So it's just not really that useful. And paper makes your business rely more on people and less on systems. That's an interesting statement. Why is that bad? Well, let's look at that a little bit more and talk about people. So people are not bad. You need them to run your business. I need them to run my business. You need them to grow your business. People are essential in running and growing businesses. When you look at the successful businesses across every industry, they rely on good people. However, you need to realize as a business owner that people are very expensive in time, money, and I might even throw energy in there. And if you really look at your, if you get into your financial statements, If you look at a lot of the accounting in your company, you'll see that a lot of dollars are spent on salary. In fact, for me, when I ran my apparel business, other than cost of goods, people was my second most expensive thing. So as a result, as a business owner, we need people to be efficient. And your goal should be, or I think this is what your goal should be, people to do people stuff and machines to do machine stuff. So things that are machines are good at, I want a machine, whether it's a computer or another machine, to do it. If people are good at something, I want people to do it. What we don't want is we don't want machines doing things that people are good at and that machines are bad at, and we don't want people doing things that our machines are good at and people are bad at. An example would be, I think we all can agree we're frustrated with when you call a company, any company, and you get the endless voicemails, or not only voicemails, the endless prompts you have to go through to talk to someone. That's frustrating. And I feel like that's something that machines aren't particularly good at. And people are better at something like that. That's just one example. And again, one of our goals here, we don't want to fire people. That's not the goal of being more efficient and eliminating paper. The goal is we want them to be doing productive work, and that productive work can fuel growth of my company. And paper is definitely a growth inhibitor. Paper is in your way. Paper is slowing you down. Paper is inhibiting the growth of your company. All right, so let's look at I made a little goofy little chart here. So you can see in our sad face areas when we're at like 0% on the vertical axis here, we have our how much paperless we are. And on the horizontal axis, we have our success and growth. And I believe there's a direct link between these two. So people who are in the 0 to 25% paperless range are going to have a harder time being successful and a harder time growing. The higher percentage you go, the easier you're going to have in being successful as a business and growing as a business. That's just a general rule of thumb. Now let's look at what 0% looks like. 0% is our sad zone. This is a business, 0%. Let's look at what they look like. Sales orders are written on 3-part forms. And I know what 0% looks like because when I first started my business when I was 25 years old, that's exactly what we did. We had 3-part forms. Quotes were given verbally on the phone. So if someone called and wanted a price on something, we just kind of look it up in something and give it to them on the phone. Salespeople were working off Rolodexes. If you remember the old, some people might not even know what a Rolodex is. It's a basically business cards on a big roller, and you spin it around. It's alphabetical, and that's how we used to track who we had to call. Some people use stacks of business cards to stay on top of clients. 3-part forms, once they're written up, they're hand delivered to your art staff, your production staff, your purchasing staff, because if they don't have those 3-part forms, they're not doing anything. They need to know what to do, and that's how they do it, is through 3-part forms. Workflow and priority is based on those pieces of paper. So in other words, the purchasing person is going to prioritize and do their workday based on the paper you hand them. Same thing for production, same thing for art. Now, accounting, even a 0% business has some software, typically, these days, and typically what they use is QuickBooks. So the typical scenario that we see with a 0% company is they do everything manually, 3-part forms, and they're only using QuickBooks for accounting. So QuickBooks is just a kind of like an afterthought. I need to give numbers to my accountant, so I put it into QuickBooks. I need to track my bank statements, I put it in QuickBooks. I need to print out an invoice, I put it in QuickBooks. So that's what happens in the 0% world. Invoices are mailed to customers, and I don't mean email. I'm literally talking about snail mail. So envelopes and stamps here. That's how the 0% company does it. And there are typically, for these type businesses, there's not any written procedure. So they're small enough businesses that procedures are not important to them, policies are not important to them. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have any procedures or policies. It means they're not written. They're things that people know in their heads. They talk about it because they're sitting 5 feet away from each other. And that's just kind of typically how they're run. Now, in these type businesses, it's very difficult to get any analytics on what's going on. Everything is paper. The only thing you can do is maybe you can look in your QuickBooks. You can see total sales per month, et cetera, things like that. But you can't get any real analytics on what's going on with your business. So therefore, decisions involve a lot of guessing. The business owner is guessing on where they need to go with their business. Um, so in summary, 0% means you're very paper driven. That will work for low volume shops. And my experience is about 250K is when you're going to really start feeling the pain. That's what it was in my business. I don't think that number's changed over the years. The people that come to ShopWorks and start having questions about automation and eliminating paper and getting computerized, they tend to be 250K businesses and over. $250,000 is a small business. That's typically a very small shop or home-based business in our industry. Um, Lots of labor. How do they get by? They have lots of labor. They're very inefficient. Communication is slow. And as they grow, they will make mistakes. Now, if they stay small, everything's fine. If they stay 250K and under, you can run a completely paper-driven shop. Now, I would argue you're never going to make much money because, I mean, there's just not that much money in a $250,000 shop. But you can stay that size and essentially never computerize or never eliminate paper. Once they start growing, they have poor customer service. So in volume shops and shops where they're doing more than 250K, if they're paper driven, they're typically going to have a lot of mistakes. They're typically going to have a lot of poor customer service. And the reason why is they're spending so much time processing paper, they're not really focusing on their core business, which is helping customers out. So again, you can be successful running this way, but it costs more because you're going to be inefficient and you can't scale. It's going to be very hard to go from 250K to 500K being paper driven. So you have to stay small, or you're going to just spend a lot of time, and a lot of time that's your own time. A lot of times that's your own time that you're spending. So if you look at the snapshot of somebody who's a 0%er in our industry, small shop, owner run and operated, and that owner works, 60 plus hours per week every week for their entire life. So that's kind of a little bit of a glum outlook, but that it is what it is, and I lived it. So I'm going to stand by that. All right, so what does a 50% shop look like? That means they're 50% paperless. And let me just say one thing. If we go back to our little chart here, I'm doing examples today from 0, 50, and 100. But in the real world, somebody's 15% paperless, they're 30% paperless, they're 65% paperless. So just understand that I'm just using these numbers for illustrative purposes. So let's look at what 50% looks like. And we got a little bit of a smiley face. This guy's pretty happy. And the reason why he's happier, well, he's in a client server environment. What does that mean? That's tech talk. It means they have a server at their shop. So they typically have a network and a server at their shop in the 50% paperless environment. And by the way, this is where my company, Jam Graphics, the most we ever got to was maybe 50 or 65% paperless. And typically these type of businesses are going to be more in the $1 million plus range in total sales. 600, 700, a million, 1.5 million. Quotes are created and delivered via email, so they've gotten away from the verbal quotes. Everything is entered into software, so sales orders are entered into software. Paper forms are printed out. They're not handwriting forms anymore. Quotes are entered into the database as well, so they can track that. There is a positive, consistent presentation of the customer, meaning if a customer calls me and wants a quote, they're going to get a nice presentation of that quote. If we do an order form, there's going to be a nice presentation of that order. You're not going to get that in the 0% shop, because in the 0% shop, you're giving them 3-part forms which are handwritten, and Joe enters it different than Bob, enters it different than Betty. So it's going to be a lot more consistent once you're computerized some. Paper forms in the 50% shop, they're still using paper, but they're not handwritten. They print it out off the computer, and typically those are distributed to the art, purchasing, and production department. If those departments make any changes to the order, they put it in the computer system. So we're kind of getting away from the paper a little bit. We're using it as a crutch, but we're kind of getting away from it. If any of these departments have questions, they look in the system. So if the art person has a question about an order, they can go to the system and retrieve it. They don't have to ask somebody. If purchasing wants to know what color the shirts are because it didn't print out on the form properly, whatever, they can go into their system because they have it on their desk, and they can go look at the order in the system. So a lot more advanced than we were doing in the paper-driven world, the 0% world. Production scheduling is done on the computer, typically. When the order is done, paper goes back to accounting, who invoices on the computer. So we're not doing double data entry. In the 50% world, The order is entered and then the order is invoiced. There's no someone having to rekey it into a computer system. That alone is a huge time saver when you go from the 0% world to the 50% world. And then business owners and managers have real numbers to guide them in decision making. So when you're a 50%er, you're not having to go to paper forms. You have more analytics than you have in QuickBooks. You can get real information out of your system, whatever you're using, and you can glean some information out of that. So basically what we're talking about here, it's more scalable and it's more efficient than 0%. So what I wanted to do here is this presentation today is not going to be a huge demo, software demo kind of thing, but I do want to flip over to our on-site product. Okay. Now I'm showing you, obviously I'm ShopWorks. I'm the owner of ShopWorks, so I'm showing you our software product. But really any software product, you're going to want to have some of the capabilities of what ShopWorks has in it, of what on-site, our product is actually called on-site, what on-site has in it. So let's pretend like we're in the shop right now that's in a 50% world. So in the 50% world, if I want to see orders in progress, I can go into my sales orders. I can say view orders in progress. And here's every order that I have in my shop. I can sort by order type, and I can see it by the type of order it is. So these are screen printing orders. If I scroll down, I'll see embroidery orders. I have promotional products orders. So my computer system can handle all that. If I look at status, I can see the status of every order. So workflow wise, people are they're utilizing my software. People that work for me are utilizing my software to say when they're done with things on an order. So I can quickly get a snapshot. When you're in the 0% paper world, there is no snapshot. Your snapshots are spreadsheets, which you have to make, or your snapshots are calendars, which you have to maintain. So in the 50% world, I don't have to do any of that because my software is taking care of it. The other nice thing about the 50% world is I can see order details immediately. So if I have a question about an order, I just click on that order and I can immediately pull up all the details for that order. I can see dates, I can see who ordered it, I can see when they ordered it, I can check on status, I can see design details, so I can see what the customer ordered, how it's being produced. I can see the line items that they ordered, so I can see the different products that we're supplying to them on this particular order. If you have integrated accounting, which ShopWorks does, and integrated shipping, which ShopWorks does, then you can see that information right from within your software system. So I can see package tracking information here. If I go to my payments tab, I can receive a payment or I can add a payment. We have a proofing component to our software. So I can actually generate a proof from within the software that the customer can approve or sign off on. So these are just kind of some of the features that you're going to get in software that is used to drive a 50% paperless business. So let's go back to our slides. Now let's look about 100% business. So the 100% business, we have our super happy face. And in the 100% paperless business, information is stored 100% digitally. Preferably it's in the cloud. It's not on a client server. And that gives you the advantages of it can be accessed from anywhere, including mobile devices. You can find historical information quickly. Employees react very quickly to customer requests and changes. So if I flip back over here to on-site, for example, a customer calls me and his name is Special Olympics and he wants to know what's going on with his orders. Well, I can quickly click on Find, type in Special, and there's the 3 orders that we're working on for Special Olympics. And I can click on Status and I can see the status of those orders. If the customer has a question on one of those orders, I can click into it and I can answer their questions. And I'm doing that all the time, real time on the phone with them. So this is very different from a paper environment. In a paper environment, you'd have to stop what you're doing, go find the paperwork, maybe talk to a couple people, maybe even call the customer back. It's a much slower process. So on our slides here, employees react very quickly to customer requests and changes, much, much faster when you're in a 50% or 100% paperless environment. Now, internally, your employees are going to feel and are more productive. They're not doing machine work. They're not doing work designed for machines. This frees them up for doing more important work, like customer service, like growing sales, like improving your shop, like producing more product that you sell. It makes it easier for you to hire and retain employees. So when you're a digital shop, when you're a shop that's not paper driven, the closer you can get to 100%, the easier it's going to be to hire new employees and to retain employees. And the reason why is because people don't want to work in this heavy paper environment. And it's going to make it easier for them to do their jobs. From the customer's perspective, customers can get email updates automatically. With some systems, like ours does this, obviously, they can log into a website. So the customer can log into a website to see what's going on with their orders. So they can even eliminate part of your customer service. So now that's saving you more time and money by not having to have as many customer service agents. People aren't relying on paper to get the job done anymore. Production floor, shipping and receiving do all of their schedules and work on big screens or touchscreen computers. So I mentioned to you that we have over 1,100 companies that are using our software. Well, I would say those people are anywhere from 50 to 100% of being paperless. And we do have some customers that are as close to 100% paperless as you can get, meaning when they get an order from their customer, it's a purchase order or whatever kind of order, once they enter that order into our system, they do everything digitally, meaning purchasing, receiving, shipping, invoicing, production. Everybody is working from computer screens. Now, on your production floor, that might involve some investment of hardware. So that's why I mentioned here big screens, touchscreen computers. These kind of things are more used in a shop floor environment. In our 100% shop, accounting is not doing double data entry. They're simply pulling up orders, saying whether they're done or not, and moving on down the road. For example, in on-site, if I wanted to invoice this order, I would simply go over to the invoicing screen of the order. I'm going to mark in here my quantity shipped. If everything shipped as proper, I would say okay. And it's all filled in. It shows me all green. I can change my terms. I would invoice it, and then I'd go to print, and I would send out my invoice right from here. I would email it to them. So when you're in a paperless environment, you're eliminating that having to enter into QuickBooks or having to enter into an accounting system your 3-part forms. It's a much more efficient process. So at 100% and even at 50%, we're way more scalable, we're way more efficient, and the whole operation is real time. And real time is an important concept. So your business is very difficult to run. And I know because I ran one. And the reason why it's difficult is because you are custom manufacturing on very short time frames, sometimes in the matter of hours or days. And that just puts a lot of stress on your business. So you cannot have information that's hours or days old because it's going to make it very difficult for you to deliver the product that you deliver. So the more you can be real time, the better. And that's where a system like OnSite, or even if it's one of our competitor systems, you need to be getting this information in real time. Meaning, if I'm a business owner and I look in here and I'm getting a snapshot of DC Special Olympics right now, I'm not getting a snapshot from yesterday. I'm getting a snapshot from this very minute. So it's important that when the purchasing's done, my screen would flash and I would see that this is updated from no to yes. That's very important. So you want your system to be as real time as possible. All right. So, I mean, you guys are probably had the same mindset as I did before you started this webinar. That's what attracted you to it, that you wanted to be paperless. So now the question is, okay, well, I'm at 0% or I'm at 10% or I'm at 20% or I'm at 30%. How do I get more paperless? How do I go from 0 to 100%? Well, before you start, you need to set realistic expectations. So one of the problems I see when I'm talking to new potential ShopWorks customers is they're very unrealistic. They want to go from 0 to 100% in 1 month, and that's just not doable. It's going to take time. You need to know that you cannot do it in one big chunk. Literally, it's impossible. Again, we've been doing this for over 20 years, over 1,100 installs. We've seen people try everything. And I'm telling you, I don't care how smart you are, how good your people are, how much money you have. It is humanly impossible to go from 0 to 100% in 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. It's going to happen incrementally, and that's my third point here. The good news is each of these increments is going to add efficiency to your operation. So I want you to think of it as like a steps, a profile of looking at steps. If you're at 0%, you're going to go to 10, 30, 50, 70, 100, something like that. Employees in general don't like change. Business owners tend to embrace change. So you're kind of at odds there. As a business owner, you have to manage change. You have to set realistic expectations. You have to plan training. You have to establish policies and procedures. And you might have to make position or even personnel changes. So it's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big undertaking, but it's still worth doing. Ownership needs to be all in on all these long-term changes. And this one is very important. Employees need to be all in on your long-term changes. So if you're a business owner considering going paperless, considering making yourself more paperless, engage your employees in the process, show them how it will benefit them, and then that will get them on board with it. If you do it in a box, if you kind of make your decisions in a box without consulting your employees, you're going to get a lot of kickback from the employees. And I'm telling you this from personal experience. So if you kind of jump in to the paperless thing without doing all these things that I'm alluding to here, without planning, without setting expectations, without getting employee feedback, if you do all that, then I'm just telling you from our experience, you're going to have lots of implementation problems. Did I spell right? Yes, implementation problems. So those problems are going to be your employees will fight you. Those problems will be your employees blame the software for everything. Those problems will be people don't want to implement new procedures. Those problems might be people will quit. So you need to plan, and plan more before you undertake this sort of thing. And again, please trust me, this is coming from experience. This is not coming from me wanting to sell you software. So what I'd like to do next is go through, and I see some questions are coming in. That's good. I encourage that. Please ask more questions. Again, I'm gonna answer those at the end. So step one, okay, analysis. As a business owner, you need to know the cost of what you're doing now is. Okay, what are we doing right now? What is that costing me? How can I save money? How can we grow by changing? Do we want to grow? So these are questions you need to ask yourself, and this should be part of a business plan. But I mean, they can simply be you sitting down asking a bunch of questions. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Some of the questions you might want to ask that I think you need to know: how much does it cost to process an order? How much money do you lose per year, per month, per week by messing up orders? How are your paper systems affecting your ability to deliver on time? How can you service customers better? Is our current way of doing business hurting our growth? Are we losing market share because we are behind the times? These are the questions you need to be asking yourself. You might already know a lot of the answers, but these certainly are the questions you need to be asking. And that all boils down to note, you need a budget. So we have companies that come to maybe look at software from ShopWorks, and they don't have a budget in mind. Now we're pretty transparent about our pricing. So it's not really a pricing issue. The issue is that the business owner needs to know if something costs them $100,000 a year, then they need to have a budget for fixing that problem. The budget can't be zero. It's very difficult to solve $100,000 problem by spending zero. So the end of step one, we want to have a budget. And what I'd like to do is take another break from our slides, and I'm going to go over here to our spreadsheet. Now, this is the spreadsheet that's on your handout. So if you want a copy of this, you can download it from the handouts on the GoToWebinar. And this is a real cost analysis. It's simple, but that doesn't mean it's not valid, because it is. This is based on my business that I used to run, Jam Graphics. So my business was a $1.6 million business. That was our gross sales that we had when I sold it. I had about 14 employees. My average order size was about $689. That means I processed around 2,000 orders a year, 2,300, which boils down to about 200 orders a month, about 50 a week, about 10 per day. So to get to my $1.6 million, I had to do 10 per day. Now, let's pretend like that business was a paperless business. Okay. And you can monkey with these numbers however you want. You could make this a much smaller business size. Um, but let's just say we are paperless. And when we're paperless, and these are all realistic numbers that from what I had at my shop. So when I was paperless, I basically had a CSR person that was 1.75. I had 1.3 quarters CSR people. Now, what does 1.3 quarters mean? Well, it means that I really had two people, but 3/4 of one person's day was doing customer service. The other quarter of their day was doing something else. Maybe they were doing shipping and receiving. I don't know. But when you run a small shop, you have people wearing different hats. We're not large businesses, so people typically don't have dedicated jobs that much. I did have a full-time person doing purchasing. They also did a couple other things, but mostly purchasing. I had 1.5 people doing shipping and receiving. The half person was a production guy who I would pull off once a day when the boxes came in, and he would help the other guy receive all the goods. And then the full-time shipper receiver would do all the shipping in the afternoon. And then I had somebody who was doing invoicing. Invoice didn't take 8 hours a day. It took about 4 hours a day. Remember, this is zero paperless, so they're going to take every single hand order and rekey it into QuickBooks. And so then here's what my salaries were. These numbers are all made up, but I don't think they're unrealistic. So you can, again, download the spreadsheet and play with these all you want. So I can see my average salary. So what I'm trying to figure out here is what all this overhead, I'm kind of considering as overhead. Let's actually think of it as order processing. So what does it cost me to process an order? That means enter an order, um, work that order through our system, order the goods, receive the goods, ship it, and invoice it. A couple things I'm leaving out. Okay. I'm leaving out art and production. That's a separate cost. And I'm leaving out sales. Those are real costs. Excuse me, my phone's ringing. Those are real costs, but they're not part of this analysis. This analysis is based on the order processing only. Okay. Now, if you want to change your analysis, you can do that, but this is how I'm looking at it. So I'm looking at it to move my paper, to get my orders done, minus production. I'm spending a total of $159,000 a year, which is 10% of sales. And this is a number I'm very interested in, which is $68.58 per order. Now, if you think about it, for your shop, that's a very important number because that's telling me if I have any order where my cost of goods, my order total minus my cost of goods, minus my cost of sales, which is salespeople, etc., I need to have at least $70 in profit, gross profit left over. I'm losing money. And as a separate, I could do this as a separate webinar. What you'll find out is that these $100 orders, these $200 orders you're doing, they're killing you. But that's a different conversation for a different day. I'm just interested in what this dollar amount is. So it's $68, almost $70 per order. Now, let's say my goal is to be 50% paperless. Okay, at 50% paperless, I think I can get my CSR to 1.25 per day instead of 1.75. I can eliminate half a job. And the way I can do that, the reason I can do that is because I can answer questions quicker. I don't have to chase paper. I can answer questions on the phone. Maybe I have a customer portal, a website where my customers can go and look at the orders. They don't even have to call me at all. Okay, so that's going to save me some time. My purchasing agent, because I'm purchasing via a computer, not via paper, I can save half a day there. Shipping and receiving, I'm only saving half a day, and invoicing, I'm saving a quarter of a day. So all those numbers come to $99,000. So in my new scenario, I've got my percentage of sales down to 6%, my total cost down to $99,000, and my cost per order is $42. I've almost reduced it by 50%. And I think these numbers are very realistic. If you don't like them, change them. And what you'll find is that the numbers are crazy in your favor that you need to go paperless. So let's zoom out here a little bit. So you'll see here, cost savings over 1 year is $60,000, and cost savings over 5 years is $300,000. Now, I don't know about you guys, but those sound like big. $60,000 and $300,000 sounds like big numbers to me. I don't think any of these numbers are unrealistic. And so I think these are the kind of savings that a $1.6 million shop can achieve. If you're a half this size, maybe you'd only achieve 1/3 of these savings. It's still a considerable amount of money. And this is not even taking into consideration the increase in sales that you could potentially get. We're just talking about savings. There's also another bump by having this extra labor. See, these people are not really, you're not going to fire these people. Okay. They're still going to be working at your shop. They're going to be doing more productive work. What does that mean, productive work? Well, it means they can actually produce more. It means I don't have to pull that guy off the production line to do shipping and receiving. He can actually produce more goods. It means my CSR people maybe can focus on upselling my customers instead of having to just chase paper all day. Maybe it means my salespeople can process more sales. It can mean a lot of things, but it's all to your benefit. So this is a real analysis. The numbers might not be 100% realistic, but you can take the spreadsheet. It's a very simple spreadsheet, and you can tweak it yourself. And I think no matter how you do the numbers, I think you'll find that the savings on a per year basis are going to be way more than any software implementation, anything like that. So it's going to make it very much favorable for you to do so. Okay, so step one is our analysis. Now let's just pretend like we've determined, okay, look guys, we have a real issue here. We're leaving 60 grand a year on the table. Okay, so how can I recoup that 60 grand per year? Well, we got to get from 0 to 100%. So step two is we need software. We need business software to make this whole 0 to 100% paperless happen. You can't do it without it. Now, you can also use multiples. So you need a single software package that can either do it all, or you need multiple software packages that are going to effectively be sewn together to give you one seamless operation. You need it because it's essential for storage of information. So, for example, you need customer information, you need accounting information, you need order information. It's essential for knowing what's going on at any given time. How many orders are we working on? Are those orders profitable? What do I need to do today in department X? So in my shipping department, my receiving department, in my production department, in my sales department, what do I need to get done? Okay. A computer system can help you with that. And also, as a business owner, you need analytics. You need to make decisions. You need to move people around. You need to emphasize your company in different directions. And you need numbers to do that. And your business software is going to give you those numbers. Now you have some options with business software. So you have, I'm going to call it option one. So one software that does most of it, and that's our approach as a company, and that's the approach of our software on site. Our approach is our software is going to do 95% of what you need it to do in your shop. It's not going to do payroll, but it is going to do all your other accounting. It's going to do all your order entry, order processing. You're going to do your sales and marketing in here. You're going to do your job quoting in here. You're going to integrate with shipping companies. And in our on-site 8.4 version, you can integrate with sales tax stuff. You can integrate with providers like Sanmar. You can integrate with shopping cart solutions like Shopify. Another option you have is break up the tasks. So in other words, you can have one software program for doing marketing. You can have another software program for doing sales, another one for doing orders, another one for accounting. Now, I don't really, in my opinion, I don't think this is the best option, and it's not for my business, but there are certainly lots of people, even some of our own customers do it this way. So some of our customers do not use our accounting. Most do. Most of our customers, probably 75% or more, use our accounting system because it's integrated. There's such a benefit to integration. When you have these separate systems working together, you have to weave them together, and that requires extra labor, extra IT, and even then, sometimes it just simply doesn't work that well. So there's other combinations. It's up to you to do the research. So obviously, I'm biased. I admit that. I'm going to push you towards ShopWorks and on-site products. But you're an independent thinker. You're a business owner. Look at everything that's out there. In fact, I'll list here for you some of our. I would look at industry-specific solutions. So obviously, we're one of them. You have Printavo. You have ShopFox. You have Deco Network. You have Impress, ASI, Fast Manager. There's one called T-Works Manager. There's one called InkSauce. There's one called Price It. ASI is the Advertising Specialties Institute. That's not the name of their product. I don't know what the name of their product is. I think it's Profit Maker. But there's literally probably, I just very quickly did a Google search and found 10. You can probably find 20 if you want. But you probably should be looking at software design specifically for our industry, because our industry does have things about it that make it different. Um, so that's some future work for you if you're not already a ShopWorks customer. Now, step 2 of business software, once you buy it, you need to prepare for the new software. So what does that mean? That means understanding your business and where you want to go before you're doing software demos. That means understanding your current problems and what you want to solve before you start talking to these software companies. What are the most important features that you have? And then you need to break down your features by what's a must-have and what's a wish I had. You need to prioritize things. So you need to do a little prep work before you start talking to your software vendors. If you go to your software vendors, for instance, if someone comes to us and say, we're just interested in software, that doesn't really tell me a lot. I need to know where are your pain points so that I can then show you how our software can solve your pain points. So my recommendation would be do a little preparation before you talk to your software vendors. And your most important questions are going to be, will this product solve my most pressing issues? How will the software provider help me implement it? We're going to talk about this in a minute, but this is a big component that people overlook. How will I receive support in the future? So when you're talking to a software company, it's not only about their features, it's how are they going to help you implement? How do they support it? What is the cost? And I want you to notice here, this is very important. This should be your last choice. Okay. What is the cost should be your, and I'm not saying that because I want to charge you more money. I'm saying this because if you can save 60 grand per year and one software package costs, I'm just going to make up numbers, $100 a month, and another software package costs $300 a month. If the $300 a month package is better than the $100 package, then you should buy the $300 package. You should pay more because you're going to save more. You're going to save the money. Why would you skimp? Your $1.6 million business spends $120,000, $130,000 a month. So you really shouldn't be worried about a $150 a month, $300 a month, $500 a month incremental expense on your business when it has the potential to save you $60,000 per year. Now, I'm not saying overpay. I'm saying you should be looking at value, not cost. And these are the most important questions. Step 3 of the software process is you need to implement it. And my important point here is you have to be committed and plan this part. And there's a lot of failure at this. And I'm telling you this now, I'm speaking to you as Jay Malanga, the software vendor. So at ShopWorks, the company, we see people buy our software and not implement it successfully. We don't want that to happen. We plan for that not to happen. We try to talk customers off the cliff, if you will, about how to do their implementation. But some people choose to not follow us or listen to us, or for whatever reason, they fail at it. And so we know what it takes to succeed this. And what it takes is, number one, is you need to plan it properly. You need to understand the business owner might not be the best person to implement. Sometimes it's a manager, sometimes it's multiple managers. And I would, my last point here is get your employees to help in the whole process. Engage your employees in it. And then also, how's the software vendor going to help? So in our case, how is ShopWorks going to help? We don't view ourselves as a software provider only. More than half of our staff is dedicated to customer service and implementation. More than half, probably 60%. So we understand that it's not just a matter of buying software, it's a matter of how to implement that software. And that's actually the most important component. You're going to do your implementation in stages. Okay. Stage 1 is your first 90 days of implementation. Stage 2, I want you to think about that as like a 1-year process. And stage 3 is never ending, the rest of your career. So when we're talking about going from 0% to 100% paperless, it's an ongoing long-term thing. And even let's say you get from 0 to 100%, things are going to change. Technology is going to change. Software is going to change. Your customers are going to change. Your market's going to change. So you're always going to be changing and trying to maintain that 100% even once you get there. So let's look at the first 90 days. In the software world, this is called onboarding. So if you come on board as a ShopWorks customer, we're gonna put you through an onboarding process that involves importing data into our system that we're going to install for you, training your staff, and now this one's more for you, but we're going to encourage you and help you, is you need to work out new procedures and processes. Now that sounds like 3 easy bullet points, The data import is very simple, but the trained staff and the procedures and processes, this is a lot of work for you. And we help you through that process, and any software vendor should. At the end of 90 days, you should be using your new software for core business functions. So that's going to be order entry, order processing, and accounting. Again, that sounds simple. Wow, that's not very much. Order entry, order processing, and accounting is 75% of what you do every day. I'm estimating, but that's what you do all day. You take orders, you process orders, and process means you design orders, you receive goods on orders, you buy product, you do inventory, you ship goods, you produce the orders, and then you do your accounting. That's the bulk of what your employees do the bulk of every day. So if you could just get through, if you could just by implementing software similar to onsite, okay, that's going to get you at the end of 90 days to, I would estimate, that's going to eliminate a lot of your paper right there. Just by having a software package like onsite, you're going to be eliminating that much of your paper. You're going to be 35 to 50% paperless. Now, you're maybe going to still be using some paper, but we're going to work more on eliminating that. And that's where we get to our first year. Okay, so what are our goals at the end of 1 year? Well, at the end of a year, now everybody's really trained and really using the system. Stubborn staff, so a lot of cases you might have staff who are hard to train, or some people even quit, or you might have to fire somebody. It happens. But stubborn staff is either retrained or they've been replaced. After the first year, for most of our customers, they've integrated our on-site system. It's very simple to integrate with UPS or other shipping software, online shopping carts. We have other integrations. At the end of that first year, you're really starting to utilize every feature of the software that you buy, whether it's on-site or something else. And you're focusing on eliminating paper wherever you can. Production, you're scheduling in your software. You're not doing it on magnet boards anymore. All major functions in your company should be done in your software system at the end of your first year. This should be a goal. And you're going to continue to streamline processes. And that's how we get from, say we were at 50% after we implemented our software after 90 days. The way that we're going to get to at the end of the year at the end of year one, our goal is to be 75% paperless. So I got to get from 50 to 20, I got to eliminate 25% more paper. How am I going to do that? Well, again, things that we've mentioned here. I'm going to continue to build out policies, procedures, training. It's not, the turtle wins the race, not the hare. And that is especially true when you're implementing software and trying to eliminate paper. And then lastly, we have our stage 3 is ongoing. So this is the one that never ends. Now you might say, I have stage 3-A, stage 3-B, stage 3-C. You can look at it however you want, but this is going to be ongoing. And ongoing goals, workstations for staff, for all staff on the production floor. Typically our customers who are on stage 3, meaning they're going from that 75% mark to trying to get to 100% of paperless. They have machines on their production floor. I don't mean production machines, I mean computers. So they might have their production schedules on a big screen monitor, and everybody looks at that production schedule instead of looking at pieces of paper. When they go to do an order, they're doing timekeeping in their system, in our on-site system. They're marking when orders are done in the system. If they have a question about an order, they bring it up on the computer screen. They don't print out a piece of paper. A lot of our customers who are paperless, I'd say close to 100% paperless, some of them have a machine, a computer, and a screen by every single press and at the end of every single belt. Some of them take a different approach. They share a kiosk, so they might have between two presses, because when you're in production, you don't have to be in the software very often, but you do have to go on there to mark things as being done. You do go on there to check on things. To refer to things. And so they'll have a shared workstation between, let's say, two machines. Okay. And so that's really what you're seeing in the stage 3 is they're fine tuning things. Employees have scanners. So on their desktops, they have scanners. So if a customer sends them a PO, they're not stapling that PO to a work order. They're scanning the PO. And watch this. In onsite, if I go to an order, we have an attachment section, so I can add any sort of scanned document, any sort of digital document, a scan, anything can be added to the order. So this order is actually a complete history of what was done for that customer on that order. And I can refer to it again next week, next month, a year from now, 5 years from now. So if this customer calls me next year and they want to replace this order, all I got to do is clone the order. I'm not entering the information from scratch. as you would in the paper world if you're doing things by paper. So you're really fine tuning things. You're automating your production floor with regards to making it paperless. Production staff are sometimes the last people to go paperless because they're typically not computer people to start with, and also they're very typically very dependent on paper when you make the switch. So they're going to be the ones that takes the longest to get off of paper. So that typically happens in stage 3. I'm going to start answering questions here in a minute. I'm kind of done with my presentation. ShopWorks, the company, again, we've been in business over 20 years. We only work in this industry. We have a lot of experience in this industry. We can help you if you're trying to go paperless. We have the experience with over 1,100 companies that have installed our software. And so we would welcome the opportunity to show you how we can help you. You can go to shopworks.com. You can register for an evaluation from us, or you can email me directly and I'll put you in contact with somebody. So thanks for your time. Our presentation is kind of over, but let me answering questions that have come up. If you have any questions you can think of, now's the time to start typing them in. I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, and we'll see how far we can get. So Regina asked the first question, where can you type in long instructions on site, or you should just attach a Word document? Great question. So Regina asked, so her question is, okay, I've got this order, but I want to give detailed instructions on this order. Okay. And there's many different ways you can do it, Regina, to answer your question. And this is true in on-site in general. Remember, on-site was designed for an entire industry. So that means it's very flexible. So there's lots of different ways you can do it. And this is where the procedures become so important. So one way where I can do it is I can go to this notes section and I can type notes, and these notes go to all my different departments. These notes are going to appear on paperwork, and they're also going to pop up on computer screens. So if my production guy, if I have a note to production, my production guy, when he goes into the software to work on this order, that note's going to pop up at him. So that's a nice feature. It's also going to print out on paperwork. So that's kind of where we recommend putting it. Now, you also mentioned attachments. You could do that. You could put in your notes, see attached Word document, and then in attachments, I could add a Word document here or a PDF document. So you have a lot of options there, and you'll have to work through those. But the nice thing is that there's different ways you can do it. Darcy asks, when you mention big screens in production, how would that work? Another good question. So how we've seen this implemented for our existing customers is the reality is hardware is cheap now, right? Computers are cheap, monitors are cheap. I mean, you can buy a 55-inch television for a couple $100, whereas a couple years ago that was a $2,000 television. So typically what we see most of our customers doing is they will put a 50, 60, 70-inch television out in their production area. They'll attach an on-site, enabled computer to it, and the computer is only a couple $100. And they'll basically display their production schedule. So in on-site, we have a production section. So let me bring it up for you. And so this is my activity. Let's go to production. So here's my production schedule. I'm looking at a weekly view. Here's my monthly view. Now, obviously, I don't have a lot of data here, but let's go to February. Let's see if we have more. So in February, I got a little bit more. But imagine that all your screen, you're filled up with jobs, and maybe your production manager decides he wants to look at it on a weekly basis, or maybe he looks at it on a daily basis. So every day, everybody can see what jobs they're supposed to be working on. So they can see what kind of job it is. He can even prioritize them. You can see a priority here, and it'll change the sorting on screen. So this is typically what would be up on a large screen monitor, and in a central location. Sometimes it's even up high. I've seen some people like mount it up on their wall. Another thing they'll do in the production areas, they'll have these by their machines. So let's say my production guy is working on this job. We have what's called a touchscreen interface. So let me go to the touchscreen interface. Let's see if I have it enabled here. Yes. So here's my touchscreen interface, and you can see here, this is what somebody might see when they're working on a machine. So they're actually on a screen printing press, and they bring up an order, and they just typed in the order number, or they scanned it from paperwork. So we do have barcoding. So they scanned a barcode on a piece of paper. It brings up the order, and they can see all the details in that order. They can see where it's shipping to. These are shipping instructions. If I go to the production area, I can see what we're doing on that job. We're embroidering it, we're folding it, we're finishing it. and then we're shipping out the door. This is an award that we're putting together. We're manufacturing an award. So very simple example, but this is the kind of thing that your person would have available on the production floor. Ron asked, does on-site show that the invoice was emailed? Yeah, if you go into uh, on-site, you have a couple options there. So one option would be you could actually have a status. You could create a custom status called invoice sent. We just have invoice, yes or no. That's hardwired in. But I could have one after that in between paid where it said invoice sent. And you could make that a yes, no, or partial. But whenever you email out of the system, whenever you email the invoice, I would see a record of it in here. So in fact, I can see here, here's the invoice enclosed. There's the email we sent to him. And if I can go look at it, I can see what the email I sent was. And you can see there's an attachment there, and I can even download this invoice if I wanted to. So we do have a copy of what we sent him stored in the on-site system. And that's how we kind of keep track of the invoices. Christine asked, what kind of hardware do you recommend for the production floor? I don't have any specifics for you on that. There's many, many options, and the good news is every day it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So I apologize, but I don't have a lot of good detailed information for you on that one. How do we get all information entered into ShopWorks to our accountant if we're not using QuickBooks? This question is asked by Deborah. Well, you're not really going to enter it into ShopWorks. It's already going to be there. So an order becomes an invoice into OnSite. So, and then as you're doing payables, purchase orders are also going to be created with OnSite. Then as you're doing payables, you'd enter your payables in here and link them to a purchase order just like you would if you're entering into QuickBooks or any other accounting package. The beauty of it is it's all integrated. So if I enter a payable and I type in the PO number, it'll instantly tell me, is that a correct amount? Is it a matching amount, etc. So you're not really going to, it's not extra work. You're going to use OnSite to do the same accounting work you would do that you're doing QuickBooks. The difference is that it's all in one software system. So when it comes time to send to your accountant, you can either export files to them. You can, some accountants prefer printed reports. You can PDF reports. There's lots of different ways you can get the information to your accountant. Some of our customers even have their just accountant log into their system. But you're going to have a lot of choices there. Deborah asked another question. Do you merge multiple purchase orders into one? You don't merge them into one, but we do have a capability to have one purchase order that covers many different sales orders. So a common use case for that is I have a bunch of customers. Those customers all order Hanes BVT white t-shirts. So I'm going to wait a couple days. I'm going to wait for those orders to come in, and I'm going to gang all the products from all those different orders, all those white t-shirts. I'm going to do one bulk purchase. So I'm going to have one purchase order. Then when that PO comes in, it goes to all the different sales orders. Charles asked a question about the release of OnSite 8.4, which is our newest release coming out. It was supposed to be done on 3/18. Charles mentions that, and he's correct. Today is 3/26, so obviously we haven't met that date, Charles. I don't think it's going to be later than mid next week. So we're literally on a day-by-day kind of notification on that. We just have some documentation, some final couple things we got to wrap up. But we do anticipate a very soon release. And as soon as that's ready, we will let everybody know. Deborah asked, can production be broken down by employee and assign jobs to each? Yes, you can do that. Daniel asks, do you know of ShopWorks users that are currently using iPads at each press? I don't know of. I'm sure there are. I don't know of that. I can't say 100% that I know that. I've sometimes when I'm at home, I'll use a ShopWorks. The company runs on ShopWorks the software. So the same software we sell you, we run our software business on. So sometimes when I'm at home and I'm working from home, I do use a tablet. Now it's not an iPad. It's a Google tablet, but I use a tablet to access my system and see what's going on. So you can definitely do it. My feeling would be I probably wouldn't do it that way with an iPad. I would use an iPad maybe for inventory or someone doing inventory type stuff, but you do have options there. So yeah, and then he followed up question, or just desktop computers. I mean, I would probably tend to use more desktops, but I'm more of a desktop person. You can use either one. There's no restriction on that. Shawnee asks, how would you set up the invoice sent option? I'm sorry, I'm not going to have time to cover that. It involves custom order statuses. However, if you contact technical support, Shawnee, or if you are not a existing customer and you'd like a walkthrough on our software of how it works and everything, we can certainly show you how that's done. I apologize. Brooke asked, do you have specific training videos on your website for production floor when we get to touchscreen computers? Yes, we do. If you go to ShopWorks Help, so if I go over here to ShopWorks Help, okay. So this is our ShopWorks Help. If you just type in touchscreen, so how to use touchscreen feature on site, you'll get an answer there. You could also type in production. If you run into any problems, like you can't find something, you should be able to find it in here. But if you can't, no problem. Just email support@shopworks.com and they'll point you to the right videos to watch. But yes, we definitely have those videos. To mass email customer statements, do you have to use manage orders? This customer's from Regina. No, you do not. You can email customer statements directly from your on-site system. So there's a bulk sending a PDF utility feature within OnSite. You can find out more about that and help as well. And it'll basically go through every order and send them notifications. Those notifications can be invoices or whatever you want. Christine asks, when would the touchscreen view on a tablet be useful? It seems clunky. I mean, when you say it seems clunky, are you referring to the touchscreen view, I guess? I don't think the touchscreen view is clunky. Obviously, it's like any software. You got to get used to it. There's a lot of information in there. For me personally, I would not really. I think a tablet is going to be more useful for someone who has to walk around. A production person on your production floor, I think you're going to be better off just giving them a workstation, a traditional computer, because you can. The problem with a tablet is it's small real estate on the screen. So the nice thing about a desktop is you can give them a bigger screen to work with. It can still be a touch screen, and they don't have to walk around with it. But that's just my opinion. Deborah asks, what are the costs? I'm assuming, Deborah, you mean what are the costs of our software? For that, I mean, we have different ways we sell our software. You can buy it, you can rent it in the cloud. I would have to ask you to contact us. One of our sales guys would ask you some questions, and we could put together some pricing for you. It can be as low as, probably $50 per user per month, and it can go on up from there depending on different options and stuff like that. Charles asked, can I combine work orders for one invoice? No, you can't. In OnSite, one order becomes one invoice. So there is a one-to-one relationship there. There is no way to combine work orders. Now, what you can do is on a single work order, you can have screen printing, embroidery, and promotional products, and that becomes one invoice. So a lot of our customers that currently use OnSite do what you're asking, but they do it in a different way. So they would just put all of the types of production on a single work order, and then that work order becomes an invoice. All right, so we're kind of out of time here. I want to thank everybody for all of your time. I know it's hard to carve an hour out of your day. I appreciate it. For all the customers that are in this webinar, I know there's a bunch of you in here. Thanks for being a ShopWorks customer. We appreciate your business. If you're not a customer and you'd like to find out more information, you know how to contact us. We would like the opportunity to show you how we can help your business. And everybody have a great day. Keep in mind this is recorded. We'll post it on YouTube. And we're going to end now. But thanks again for everybody's time. Have a great week.